Sorry guys, as I opened the trigger editor, my thing actually crashed, and I lost the map that I was working on since I didn't save it. Good job, me. So anyways, to continue this tutorial, I'm going to just be using my the actual demo map that I used initially, and I just deleted all the triggers out, and I tried to recreate it from scratch here. So that's what I'll be doing, just so you know when we go test, and you'll see that I'm not using the same map that we started on, because I don't want to have to go through that all again. So sorry about that, but anyways, I open the trigger editor here and just delete all the actions from melee initialization. And then we're going to start on the left here by making some variables and records, which I'll explain later. So let's right click here and add a new variable, and let's call this heroes, and this is just going to be used to track our hero units. So change the type to unit, check off array, and make it size 2 so that we have one of these variables for each player since we have 2 players. And now we're going to make some folders, so right click on the left, new folder, and let's call this move and attack. And within this folder, let's make a new record. And let's call this move and attack info. And then a record is basically just a collection of variables grouped into one object. So that's all I'm using it for, is organizational purposes. And so within this record, let's add a new variable, Control W, aka, and let's call this left pressed, and change the type to Boolean. And it's basically going to let us track where the left mouse is down. Copy paste and call this unit clicked, and it's also Boolean. And then copy paste, change it to be move direction, and change the type to be real, which is just an angle. For us, it will be just an angle, I mean. And copy paste that and set it to target direction, this variable, and set its name, I mean, and change the type of this to be unit. And that's going to be used when we're attacking, auto attacking. And this record is good. So now we need to actually make a record variable out of it, which is what will be actually used by our game. So on the left here, right click and go new variable. Let's call this player move and attack info. So the record just defines the object, the variables, and then these actually put it into use. So the type for this new variable is going to be scroll up and dash record, and it's defaulted to our 1 record. And we want it to be an array of size 2, since we have 1 for each player. And that's pretty much good to go on that setup. So let's make a new folder above it, and let's call this spells. And within this folder, let's make a new record, and let's call this spell info. And the variables within here, let's Control W, right pressed, and the type is going to be Boolean. Initially false is fine. Copy paste, call this right mouse position, and change the type to be a point. And you'll see this all come together later. I'm just kind of hashing it all out right now. And copy paste that, and let's rename it to be unit highlighted, change it to be type of Boolean, copy paste that, oops, wrong button, and rename this new copy paste to be highlighted unit, and change the type to be an actual unit. There we go. Copy paste that and change this to be right mouse spell, and change the type to be ability command. And this is going to be what ability you have set as your right mouse spell. And copy paste that and call this next one right mouse spell requires target. Change the type to be Boolean. Copy paste that, change it to be right mouse spell requires ground, also Boolean. Copy paste that and change it to be right mouse spell cool down. And that's going to be a real because it's a time. And then this record is set up, so now we need to make a record variable. So on the left here, new variable, and let's call this player spell info, and the type is going to be record, and then choose the record of spell info array size 2. So that's all fine and dandy, and now we can actually set up our melee initialization trigger now. So at the top here, click on melee initialization in the actions, which I already cleared out. Let's make a new one to do some basic stuff here. So the first action we're going to do is UI show/hide game UI. We're going to hide it for all players. Copy paste this, double click, and change it to be UI enable/disable drag selection, and we're going to disable. So this will prevent the green box, the dragging box, when you're holding down left mouse, which we don't want for a Diablo, right? And then we're going to set all the alliances. So Control W, new action, player, and then we're going to choose set alliance for player group, and then change player group to be function active players, and change ally with shared vision to be ally. It's up to you. You could leave shared vision on if you want, but I'm not. And now we're going to set our hero variables. So new action variable, set variable, change variable to be heroes, change 0 to be 1, and change value to be the player 1 zealot. Copy paste, change heroes to be, change the 1 to a 2, and change the zealot to be the player 2 zealot. And you'll see why we're doing this in a sec, why we're assigning them to numbered variables based on their player. So now we're going to set some camera stuff. So new action, player group, pick each player in, change all players to active players. New action with inside here, the general down here, not the upper general, and then choose if then else. And then Control W on the if, comparison OK, click on the left bracket of owner of triggering unit down here, and we're going to change it to be player, controller of player. Controller of player, instead of 1, make it function picked player, equals value 2, change it to be preset user. So we're just going to check that this active player is a user. In case he's a computer player, we don't want to do this. And then Control W in the then block here, and look for camera, pan camera, change it from 1 to be function picked player, which is referring to each player in this loop of active players. Instead of center of triggering region, click on the left bracket of center and change it to be unit, position of unit, change triggering unit to be variable heroes, and change 0 to be function picked player. And now you see why we have that variable, because it makes this very easy when we're looping through the players. Over 0 seconds, by the way. And that's good. And copy paste that and double click and change it to be camera follow unit group with camera. And we're going to follow for player function picked player, not last created units, but we want to convert a unit to a unit group. And instead of triggering unit, we actually want to do variable heroes. Instead of 0, we want to do function picked player. And clear current target is fine. And now let's copy paste this, double click, and we're going to do camera, lock camera input, so you can't scroll around the edges and stuff. And we're going to lock the camera input for player, change 1 to be function picked player as usual. And now we're going to set some initial spell stuff for him, so that his initial cast is SCII Storm. And you'll understand this later, but I'm just going to go through it right now. So new action variable, set variable, and change variable to be player spell info, change 0 to be function picked player, and change the member to be right mouse spell. And then let's hit on value there and search for High Templar and click on Psionic Storm and choose that one. Copy paste this, change right mouse spell to be right mouse spell requires target, and change the value to be false. So just don't check true and hit OK. And copy paste that and change the target thing to be ground and change false to be true, because the spell does require ground but no actual target. And copy paste that and then change the ground thing to be cooldown, change true to be 0.5. And this value is arbitrary. I just said this is, when you're holding down right mouse, this is the minimum amount of time between each SCII Storm cast that's auto going to happen. So you could adjust this value as you like. I think 0.5 is decent. It's going to burn your mana pretty fast, but like you saw, I'm not using mana in this demo. And last thing, we're going to just display a quick message to the user. UI, new action UI text message. Change the message to be SCII Storm set to right mouse. And we'll hit OK. And I'm just going to save, and change all players, sorry, to convert player to player group. Change the 1 to be function picked player. And I'm just going to save because I don't want to have the same crash I had earlier. That would suck anyways. And then now we're going to want to do two more things in this. So click on the top of player group here, click on this top action and hit Control W. And then go to General, the one down here, and click on If Then Else. And so make sure it's outside of the player group action. we don't want to loop through this, but we do want to do something here. So in the if block, hit Control W, comparison OK, change the condition to be player, where is it, player, status of player. And if the status of player 1 is not equal to, so change it to exclamation point equals, value 2, change it to preset playing, then we are going to do unit remove unit. And we're going to, instead of triggering unit, we're going to remove variables heroes 1 from the game. So if the player's not there, and then copy paste this if then else like that, and change the status of player 2 and change remove heroes 2. And I probably could have done this in a loop too, but I just wanted to be very clear about this, about what we're doing here. And now this melee initialization is done basically, or I should rename this to just initialization. That's hard to spell. And now we can move on to doing move and attack, so like how you hold down left mouse to move and how you auto attack that way. So let's make a new trigger in the move and attack folder, and let's call this mouse down left. And the event for this trigger, Control W on the events, and choose UI mouse clicked. And then player, any player clicks, change any to be left mouse, and down is good. And then local variables, well, you're going to use these to calculate the angle that you're going to be moving and stuff like that. So Control W on local variables, let's call this cam target, and the type is going to be a point. Oh, why did it go back to integer? Point. And then click on this thing. If you can't see the initial value here, you might need to scroll this bar up and click on that and change it to be a function camera current camera target of player. And we want the current camera target of player, change the 1 to function triggering player, which is grayed out, but it actually works. So ignore the fact that it's grayed out. It refers to the player of this event. So yeah, anyways, that's going to be the camera target. And then the other point we want is, so copy paste this local variable and F2 to rename to mouse clicked. So this is where the mouse was clicked. And then to change its initial value, what you have to do is double click right on this thing right here. And so double click there. And we're going to change this to be point from XY. And then the first 0.0, we're going to change that to be function UI mouse clicked world X position, and then to change the second 0.0 to be function UI mouse clicked world Y position. And that's good. It's nice of Blizzard to give us stuff like this so we can make Diablo. It's awesome. Now the condition is that we don't want right mouse to be down at this time. This is just something I found from testing, that it was pretty buggy when you were holding down left mouse and right mouse at the same time. It wasn't buggy, but it just wasn't as good as, it wasn't proper like Diablo. So Control W on conditions here, comparison, click on the left bracket, and let's change it to be variable player spell info. Change the 0 to be function triggering player, which is grayed out. Change member to be right pressed. And leave equals equals, and change value to be not true, so leave it unchecked and hit OK. So when the event that the left mouse is down, we'll set these local variables, and then we'll make sure that right mouse is not down, which is what this will simulate. And then the action we're going to do, pretty small here, we're just going to do new action variable set variable, and we're going to set player move and attack info instead of 0 function triggering player, and we're going to set the member to be left pressed, and we're going to set the value to be true. So it's pretty obvious what we're doing here. We're just setting our variables to be used later in our movement trigger. And copy paste this action, and then change left press to be move direction, and change it to be, instead of true, make it function math, no wait, it might be point, angle between points, yeah. Angle between, instead of position of triggering unit, click on the left bracket of position and change it to be variable cam target, and click on the left bracket of the second position of triggering unit and change it to be variable mouse clicked. And I think the order of these matters. Mathematically it matters. And this trigger is pretty much done. But now we need to deal with when they lift off the mouse button. So this is when they press down on the mouse button, left mouse button, and we copy paste this trigger, rename it to mouse down, mouse up left, and the events, change the event from down to be up. We can delete both, delete both local variables, hit OK on the warning, delete the condition, and now we can do some stuff with this. So we want to set player move and attack info left pressed equal false now, so uncheck true and hit OK. And delete this broken one here, and then copy paste the one that we just set, and change left press to be unit clicked and make that false. And this is just taking care of some cleanup that we'll do later. You'll see why we're setting all these things once you actually go play it and play around with it. And the last thing is another new action, so Control W, unit issue order, and we're going to order the variable heroes, change the 0 to be function triggering player. Another great reason why we used this heroes variable as an array, so we can use the triggering player to reference exactly to their hero. You don't have to do a bunch of if this player do that, if this player do that. And now change ability commands, so click on the red ability command and search for stop. And click on the one that's stop in both columns. And we want to replace existing orders. So this will order him to stop when you lift up your mouse, which is exactly like Diablo. If you're not holding down your mouse, your guy isn't doing anything. And that takes care of this trigger. And now we're going to deal with when you move your mouse around, when you're holding down to move and stuff like that. So new trigger on the left here. Let's call this mouse moved, and in brackets I'm going to put also for spells, because this isn't going to be in the spells folder, but it's going to be doing some stuff that's relevant to here, just to save trigger cycle time, rather than have two different triggers for each one. So in mouse moved here, the event is going to be UI mouse moved, and Blizzard added this event a few patches ago, which is awesome. Any player moves the mouse, and the local variables we're going to copy from mouse down left. So copy those, and camera target of player triggering player, and instead of mouse X position clicked, change it to UI mouse moved world position X, and same for the Y, so change it to be mouse moved world position Y. Otherwise you'll have the wrong thing referenced, so that's an important thing I just did. And then now we're going to add a new if then else action. So general if then else, the condition comparison, change it from the left bracket here, change it to be variable player move and attack info, change the 0 to be function triggering player, change it to be member to be left pressed, and change it to be equals to true. So we're checking if they have their left mouse down while they're moving. So in the event that they move their mouse and they have their left mouse pressed down, then we're going to order them to move along their direction. So in the then block here, make a new action, variable set variable, change the variable to be player move and attack info, change 0 to be function triggering player, and let's see, what do we want to do here? Move direction, change member to be move direction. And the value is going to be function point angle between points, angle from, instead of position of trigger unit, make it cam target, and the second one, change it to be, like we did before, change it to be mouse clicked. So this will be the sort of move direction angle you're going in. Now we want to also copy paste this if then else and make sure it's completely below, and then we want to check if the condition, instead of player move and attack info, click on it and change it to player spell info. And we want to check if player spell info triggering player dot right pressed is equals to true. And if so, then we want to set this variable. So change this variable to be player spell info, still triggering player, but instead of move direction, we want right mouse position, and instead of angle, click on the left bracket here and change it to variable mouse clicked. So it sets where the right mouse position will be based on your mouse here moving around. And this deals with when you hold down the right mouse, which we'll get into later. So mouse moved is done now, and now we're going to do the movement loop. So add a new trigger here on the left. Let's call this follow mouse loop. And the event for this trigger is going to be timer, elapsed game time is 1 game time second. I'm just doing a bit after 0 just so it has some time after this initialization is run. And the action is going to be general repeat forever. And then the action within here is going to be player group, pick each player in active players, and then action within this is going to be general if then else, and the condition inside the if here is going to be comparison, and then change it to be variable hero, oh actually no, function unit is alive, and then change triggering unit to be our variable, sorry, and then change the 0, change it to be our heroes variable, and then change the 0 to be function picked player is alive equals to true. So we want to make sure so basically if our hero is alive, we're going to be looping him to follow the mouse forever, follow the direction of the mouse from his current position. So this is true, and we actually have to copy paste this. I have some more conditions we need to make sure. Click on the left bracket here and change it to be variable player move and attack info, change 0 to be function picked player, and then change member to be left pressed equals to true. So we want to check that their left mouse is down, of course, that their hero is alive, and one more thing is that that a unit is clicked equals to false. So I copy pasted it. And so if these 3 things are true, then we're going to order a guy to follow the mouse. So add a new action in the then unit issue order, and change triggering unit to be variable heroes, change 0 to be function picked player, and click on the left bracket of ability command and change it to order targeting point, and then change the ability command to be move, and pick the one with both move in both columns. And the target point, now here's a little bit of math trickery. And this is the best way I found to do Diablo movement. I haven't seen anyone do it better, and this took me actually a while to sort of fine-tune this. Under function here, we want to do point with, I believe, let me take a look. I think it's point with polar offset, because we want to order the guide to kind of go towards an angle, which is your move direction. So choose that one. A polar offset is just like an offset at a certain angle. So instead of this red point, we want to change it to be variable, function unit position of variable heroes, and instead of 0, we want function picked player. So we're offsetting him to move from his current position, offset by 1.0, that's fine, towards, and not 0 degrees, but towards variable player move and attack info, instead of 0, function picked player, and instead of member degrees, we want to do variable move direction and replace existing order. So does this make sense? I mean, basically, he's ordering to move from his current position plus one point of grid movement in the angle that our mouse was last at from his current position. So this works. That's all you got to know. If by holding down your mouse, you're going to go in the angle of your mouse away from your current position. It did take me a while, so I hope that sinks in relatively quickly, because there's a lot of other ways you can do Diablo movement, but I tried to keep it as close to actual Diablo as possible, and this is what I found worked. And then right after this if then else, we want to do a general wait, and we're going to wait 0.08 real-time seconds. And why is it 0.09? Oops. And make sure it's outside of this if. Make sure it's like you can see the dotted line going up to the if then else at the top here, because we want to repeat this. Oh, sorry. Actually, this should be outside of the player group thing. Actually, my bad. It should be outside of this player group thing. So you should see the line going like that, because we're going to repeat this forever. And if you don't have this wait here, it's going to crash. So because it's trying to run infinitely. So basically, forever, we're going to check for each player that we're going to make their hero move towards their position if they're holding left mouse, and then we're going to wait a really small time, run it again, wait a really small time, run it again, and so on for the whole game. and it's not that bad. This isn't that inefficient, so don't worry too much about that.